The Pacific Islands Forum Leaders Summit is just days away from opening in Nuku'alofa in Tonga, and frantic efforts are still needed to ensure visitors are housed. Don Wiseman spoke with RNZ Pacific's Tonga correspondent Kalafi Moala about this and other matters to do with the summit. But he began by talking about this week's dramatic revelations of 17 people arrested over 10 days on charges of importing to sell millions of paanga worth of methamphetamine.
First up, if we can talk about this, what appears to have been a highly coordinated series of drug raids over the past couple of weeks, an impressive haul of methamphetamine and interesting array of people.
Yes, there's 17 that have been arrested recently, and I just heard there's going to be more coming up. The leaders of this group that have been arrested are deportees. One of them have been identified as a deportee from Australia. But I think the interesting thing is there's a buildup of, or there has already been a buildup of a gang, a group that have been formed here in Tonga. And they are suspected to be one of the main distributors of drugs here. And there's a lot of money involved. There's a lot of assets like cars and motorbikes that have been confiscated with this arrest. The word that we get from the police is that they've been waiting for the right time to do this. They have been following and have known about this for some time. And this arrest is a result of an investigation. They felt it's the right time to do so.
You would think in a small place like Tongatapu, it's very hard to hide this sort of activity.
Absolutely. Very true. I think there's a lot more people that know about what's going on, and they just kind of either look the other way or just kind of shrug their shoulders and think that's none of my business. But the encouraging thing to us here that live here is that the police had their eyes on this and they're at least doing something about it.
Do you think the upcoming forum summit would have prompted them in any way?
No, because they've been doing this for some time. In fact, they would have avoided doing the arrest at this particular time if they were trying to make an impression on the forum, because it doesn't go well for Tonga in terms of reputation. Do it right at the time when they are visitors. But I talked to one of my sources in the police department, and they say they finally got everything that they needed. And the timing of the arrest had nothing to do with the forum. It was just the right time for them to do so.
In terms of the forum, we've talked at length about the issues with whether there'll be enough housing, but I understand that some of it at least has now been opened and is ready to occupy, or is it?
That's correct. The temporary housing that have been set up is 150 prefab houses, and they are in 4 different locations. The biggest location was opened on this past week. In fact, was open on Saturday. The interesting thing is no one is living there yet. The accommodation is in another location. In fact, the location where the actual meetings will take place, right in town. The housing there has been open. That's where they're opening a media center, and quite a number of the journalists that have arrived in Tonga early, particularly from the PIF, from Pacific Island Forum, they're already staying there. The other 2 locations where the housing is set up is not yet completed. And I think this may be an embarrassment to the government, because they are giving out press releases and telling people that it's already completed, it will be finished. But there are 2 locations, and I have just visited those locations today, and there's nothing inside those houses. It's still empty. There are no beds. They're still trying to connect the pipes. And this is Wednesday, and the people are arriving before the weekend. So I don't know what they're thinking, but the organizers here, they must be worried, but they're trying to put on a good impression. They're going to have housing for everybody, and I'm hoping that they do.
Now, there had been a call put out by the government to ask residents if they would be happy to put visitors up.
And there has been a lot of response to that. There are people that are opening up their homes, even with government assistance, to fix up 1 or 2 rooms that are open in a home. And what I have heard as of yesterday, that some of those homes that have opened up are already booked to be occupied. I think the concern has been the prefab homes, the 150 that are being constructed. Less than half of those are ready for occupation. The other half, they're still fixing it.
Now, as far as the forum goes, it's clearly a very important event for Tonga, and Tonga takes the chairmanship of the organisation. What would be the most important things for Tonga? What are they looking to come out of the meeting?
Based on the activities that have been going on in the last few months, I believe Tonga is really looking very much to see that this PIF conference is going to help bring in funding for Tonga, funding for things like the climate change impact funding that they need, funding for development economically and socially. I think those are kind of things that this government is reaching out for. They feel that there could be some key friendships that will come out of this PIF conference. And the fact that it's in Tonga, I think they're hoping that the visitors will at least see Tonga and see the kind of things that needs development, and hopefully will provide funding for. You've got to remember that the Secretary General of the United Nations is going to be visiting here. And that's a first time, I believe, for a forum. You have a number of other development partners that are going to be observers or guests. Whether it's from France or from China, from Japan, they're going to be here. So it's a very important thing for Tonga. The interesting thing, though, is that there is training going on now for journalists that are visiting on just how to cover Pacific Island Forum. And the training was started off with two of the government journalists basically announcing to the training sessions to watch out for foreigners, foreign journalists who will be here to give Tonga a bad name. And basically it was a propaganda advertisement to say, hey, let's have some good stories for Tonga. And of course, that's why this story about the drug arrest and so on is, in the view of government, it's not a good time. It's not a good story. But it was interesting that at the beginning of the sessions this week, they continue to say, watch out for the foreigners who are here to give Tonga a bad name, the foreign journalists. Let's give Tonga some good stories.